All right.
Here we go. Okay. All right.
I'm
We
going
made
to
it
check
back.
now. We're back.
Weird.
This
Weird.
is part
Okay.
2. Let's see. I wonder at what point we got cut off. We're having a great conversation here.
Yeah, it was going really well. So that was a sign. Maybe that was meant to happen. I'm gonna find this on YouTube. Here,
Yeah, I'm going to try
I'm gonna
face.
verify YouTube operations. Part. Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I'm going to try face.
Whew, we made it back. Okay, good job, everybody. What's up, Aurora Diamond Heart? We got Adam Marquise rolling in. Okay, cool. People are still here. If you're
All right.
watching in the chat, can you tell us what was the last thing you heard? Because me and Alicia got into a massive argument, and it's like we're hoping that didn't get that part didn't get on the live stream.
Oh my goodness. So funny. I'm just going to check Facebook just to see where
Cool.
we're
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
No
here we
worries.
are. Yeah.
Thank you, by the way. This has definitely been fun hanging out. Hopefully, people got to hang out for part. Hopefully, people got to view part of that experience. Because I noticed after we had been talking for like, it's like we were. I think it was me actually. I was just ranting on, and I saw in the chat it was like everything, or like somebody was like everything went black or something like that. I was like, oh, I'm sure it's nothing. Just keep going. Just keep talking. But okay, cool. White Swan says at the beginning of your story about that lady. And so maybe
Oh,
that was the portal story, or was that your story with the who knows? At
I
any
think that
rate.
was yours, the clearing, the house clearing that you did.
Oh, right. At any rate, maybe we'll post the recording of this later. I'll tell you the abridged version of it, everybody. Basically, we did a ritual in front of the fireplace with a number of things. There was literally a cigarette in the cigar box. There was, I think, a rose, like a little rosebud. A couple other things. It was a very, very wild and strange experience. And sure enough, and for those of you guys that didn't hear this, the guy came back like a year later, and it was what I was actually just about a year right before I left this store under great controversy. The guy came back, and I didn't even recognize him, and he was like, "That thing left," and I was like, "What?" It's like I didn't even remember what it was. One of those moments where you're like, "Oh, cool." Anyway, but portals can be closed, they can be opened. So anyway,
Yeah.
that was the wrap up of that story. Thanks, guys.
And then we continued to talk about all different types of portals, and we're talking about galactic ones being pulled up on ship. And so you were talking about how you wake up sometimes and have like strange occurrences in your
Oh
body.
man. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, you brought that back. And I have a feeling for those of you guys in the chat, we were kind of talking about how both of us had these experiences. Alicia was saying, maybe you might throw up or something after some crazy astral experience, or they would take you somewhere. And I would say in my case, sometimes I think it's weird to talk about it because it's like I'm also the person that helps people with such things. So it's like some people would be like, what? But I think the best thing we can do is be authentic about our experiences and be literally real and be like, this is a thing that's happening. But I've noticed for both me and my wife, we have had a number of very strange experiences over the past few months. In one case, I was literally standing up in the middle of the night listening to this voice that was telling me to get dressed. I can't leave like this. And it was like moments later, I was literally in a room, which I believe sounds so dumb to say it now. I thought it was the moon that we got taken to. But to make it even weirder, I think there has been somewhat of a visitation schedule for myself because I have noticed that a couple months ago, it was like, get ready, guys, really cheesy, wild story. It was like something was forcefully inserted while I was asleep all the way up my nose into the side of my head. And for days after that, I could feel this thing kind of coming out of my nose, but it was like there was nothing there. There was literally nothing physical. And if I would do sessions with people, it was like I would feel it vibrate and just one side of my nose would literally start pouring. It was like this fluid would just come out. And it was very, very, it was embarrassing. It was a little bit concerning. But wild thing is, Alicia, nothing bad happened from it. There was no negative consequences. And then sure enough, it just.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned that because from the moment I woke up this morning, I had a dream that this stuff was coming out of my nose. And leading into coming on the live with you, I kept feeling like I wanted to pull something out of my nose. Yeah. And I had And I had an experience, a dream type experience there. I had a similar thing of stuff coming out of my ear. That was like a few months ago. And then for months, I would have this strange popping sensation in my ear. And I was like, oh,
Yes.
goodness,
What?
do I have to like go and have that checked out? And I always get nah. And then, yeah, and then it disappeared. Like, and I just laughed at myself because I've had so much physical stuff happen this year. And like last month it was like my ovaries and my womb, and it was like, oh my goodness, like. And, I remember being on the phone to my mom and I was like, you know what, this is the 10th time I thought I was going to die this year. And like these symptoms, they just come and go. And then, just remind me next time, like I'm just going through a really weird phase. But I have noticed that, or I've seen in other people's experiences that if there is a part of them that's on, like, let's say a mission in the realms at night, like there's another aspect of them that does, and I know a lot of people like that have recall. Sometimes there are wounds from the other dimensional aspects of themselves bleed through into our physical body. So they're the weird aches and pains that sort of come and go. I've got this one on my foot at the moment, and it's at a very strange place. It feels like I've like fractured my like bone on my foot, which I've done nothing. Like you would think I would remember an incident where I've done serious damage, but the pain literally comes and goes. And now it's like, I don't feel it anymore. So I think it's a part of an energetic bleed through. What do you think?
Which foot is it?
It is my left foot.
Well, I mean, it's probably TMI for the live stream here, but it's like there is what I would call like an inflammation or some form of like it's a thing where it's like as soon as I put my view on certain things, you can feel that there's a like something that either has expanded or inflamed itself, and who knows? Just I try not to be one of those like let's give out unasked for info, but it does feel like a thing that will come and go at certain stages. And anyway, I'll leave it there because sometimes I think it's weird to be like, let me tell you about yourself. I think it's very dangerous.
Well, you did
very,
that
very dangerous.
Last time we got off the live, I inquired about something and you just nailed it. I was like,
oh,
you were
really?
like, oh, there's some swelling in your right foot and the lymph system. And I was like, yeah, I have a
Actually, I
condition.
probably would have. Yeah, I was thinking of lymph again. That's wild.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't want to give out unsolicited health advice, but I've recently come across MMS.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So my dog had a tumor and I thought I'd treat it with that. And it did. It exacerbated it. It started growing. But I wasn't aware of the health crisis before, it starts to heal.
Yeah.
And so I started taking it myself. And I've never actually thought about curing my right foot. It's something I've just like dealt with. But as soon as I take it, I can feel this, I can feel where it's going in my body and it goes straight to my foot. And then it's starting to drain out. And I was like, oh my God. I was like having these visions of like telling people, oh my God, my foot it happened when I was like 17. So originally my spiritual teacher at the time told me that I was bitten by a spider and that there was poison trapped in it. There is a hereditary condition on my mum's side. So genetically, I'm kind of more prone to having this condition. I've spent thousands of dollars on medical, like no one could give me any answers or any treatment, just like manage it, deal with it, And it was only in the last few years that I tuned into it. And I was like, oh my God, there's an actual chip in my foot.
Yeah.
There is a monitoring device in my foot. And I understand what that's for. And I've had a few experiences where I can feel it like disperse a frequency through my body to put me into a more euphoric state. But I think, yeah. But I feel like it's how I'm monitored, if I'm completely honest. And I don't want to say that in a scary way. Like it's
okay. I totally feel you. I feel you. Yeah.
But I think the physical
Oh,
impact, because I remember when it hit me, I was outside. It was a Christmas Eve, and I was wandering outside with barefoot because I never like to wear shoes. And then all of a sudden, I felt this thing go like it was almost like, and
yeah.
then from that, the next day it just swelled up, and
Just
I was
started
like,
smiling.
yeah. So I noticed that
Happens when
doing
it's-
energy practice, it makes it exacerbate a little bit more, but it's yeah,
I
it's
feel you.
more or less manageable and under control. But I'm like, next time you're gonna like, you know, inject me with some sort of chip, can you like make sure that it doesn't
Yeah,
impact
can we
my
not have physical results maybe? Or can we not get weird swelling and like enlargement of our body or strange difficulty in areas? I have a question about that. And maybe this is me making one of those weird observations again, but it's kind of odd because I talked to my wife about this as well. And I have made an observation that a number of people who work very, very legitimately within the energetic or non-physical realms will end up getting some kind of weird thing. And then maybe it's not some horrible disease or some life-ending weird, horrible, mutation or something, but it's like you'll get some sort of like a weird condition or a thing or just some kind of like, oh yeah, I'm doing really good and I do have great, but oh, I have that. Yeah, there's that thing there. But yeah, we're good. Because I got well, a lot of people know this about me. I have crazy liver energy. I've been treated for liver stuff at this life. I think everyone has like a trouble organ or a trouble area. And me, it was like even before I was involved in anything energetic, even before I ever did drugs in my life, I had a weird jacked up liver at earlier stages of my journey, and they couldn't really figure out why. They're like, why does he
mm,
have crazy? So I think everyone, well, maybe not everyone, because I've also encountered other people that have nothing, but I've also encountered people that I've seen that do this work, and you will watch them physically degrade over the years, which I'm going to be real concerns me because I think, like, kind of like you, I have observed that my path in this life is literally this thing. And you will know that there's a stage when you're like, well, I realize I'm never going back to that side, the third density occupational side. And now I do this thing. And it's cool because you will never have to go back. But it's awkward because it's like, now this is the only thing I can do. And so it's like, but what are your views on that? Have you noticed a similar thing? Why do people carry some form of a wound, or is that even necessary? What do you think? I know that was a loaded
yeah.
bag of stuff, but
Well, if you look at like shamanism in like the native cultures, generally it's the medicine person is picked or selected if they have like a physical illness that they almost die from and come back from, or they're struck by lightning. And it's kind of like a rite of passage where you go to that brink of almost death or having some sort of disease or illness and then overcoming that. So I think that, and I have noticed this, like, you can do amazing things for other people, but there's always that one lingering thing. And I think that's like the, the ultimate, like, um, process that you sort of chip away at, potentially. I don't know. That's just kind of
maybe
what.
that's the path of the wounded healer, not to make it into an archetype or a symbol or a stage, but maybe it is. That's the thing. It's like literally the wounded healer. Could be that.
Yeah, I
That might
think
be an
like
oversimplification, but
I always think that the more life experience you have makes you a better healer. Not
yeah.
necessarily, but I think it just gives you a greater vantage or reference point of personal life experiences that you can then, be able to impart that to other people potentially. But I want to go back to like the nose thing because like
Mhm.
I did think about something like that. For years and years, I used to wake up with just like this chronic nasal drip. Didn't matter
Mhm.
what I did. Like I'd wake up, my nose would be pouring, and then like within 30 minutes to an hour, it would go away. And what I was told was that that was the decalcifying process of my pineal gland, and that there had to be some sort of form of purification that occurred there. Any
I
thought?
would it feels like a thing that could very well be true for certain people. I
Mm.
have had encounters where I had done sessions with people and like some kind of fluid came out of their ear, and who knows, But what's weird is she told me a similar thing, and it was very, very. I was like, "Whoa, really? Huh? Maybe it was." And so, I would like to say yes. I believe that is 100% possible. I have a weird idea, at least from my perspective of what has been happening. Um, I think that I signed up for that process, the process
Mm,
of monitoring. I signed up for the process of being a part of a certain thing of I think that I was marked, not necessarily marked, certain elements of the DNA will be just pop up on a grid at a certain stage, and you'll receive a different level of energetic or spiritual tampering or involvement. And I know that for me, what I believe that thing is, or when those experiences have happened, I believe it was a non-physical thing that was placed into my body for the purpose of monitoring or just watching or checking things out. I noticed
mm,
that there was a stage where it went away and it was just gone. And I was like, whoa, damn, that was crazy. And then it came back. And then, each time I would be doing sessions with people, and then I would realize the next day that it was gone. So the release of the sensation around it has always been through the lens of doing some form of healing practice. And then
mm,
also, like you were saying, because how you're saying, you got this thing in your foot. I might have mentioned this last time I was on your show. And there was a period of time when I wouldn't talk about it because I thought people would be like, "What? That's fake." But nowadays, I don't give a shit. And one of my earliest experiences before I knew about anything spiritual in this world was dealing with this strange mass that was in my ear. And I went through
mm,
stages of my life where I literally tried to cut it out, and was not a good idea because there was a thing there and I could not get it out. It's like as soon as I would go in and I would come to the stage where there was so much pain, but I could see there was a dot. And then
mm.
suddenly I noticed that I would be letting it heal and I would cover it up. So it was almost like I would come to a point and then suddenly would snap, cancel, and then it was over. It was like a weird, and then I would just deactivate. And I did not ever think that that could have been an implant until when I came to the stage when I started doing this work. And one of the things that I was informed of and was also given to me, I was informed in the form of another person that was doing a session on me, but it was also something that I had been told was that I had not necessarily contracted, but I had chosen to allow myself to be physically monitored, and that
Mm.
there was some form of a device that had been placed in the physical body. But what I was shown was that it had been deactivated in favor of this sounds so dumb. Deactivated in favor of newer technology.
Oh,
It
that
was
makes
like
sense to me.
literally a
That makes
phrase. It was like, well, that's not needed anymore. So it's, it was off. And I was even able to ask questions about it. And
mm,
like in the weird question and answer session that I had about it, I was like, is there a problem? Is there something wrong? Is there something I need to know about it? And the only information I was given was that there was a possibility that it could create some form of neurological problem if a certain level of toxicity was met. It was like
mm,
if a certain critical mass of energy was able to gather in the area, then there could be a problem. But by and large, it has something that had been, deactivated. It was also around the time that, well, no, it wasn't around that time, but shortly thereafter, I started hearing this word in my head, and it was nanoneural toxicity, which is a very long,
ooh,
particular term, right? You're like, what? What? It's like literally, I'd be like nanoneural, like just. It was like I needed to
mm,
know about it. And so, anyway, we're going down
mm.
a very particular wormhole here today.
I'm just going to respond to that question about
Yeah,
the
yeah, go
implant that
ahead.
was left in my foot. That I'm in the SSP 90 back. Yeah, it feels like that, honestly.
You probably did.
Probably. I feel like I'm still active for the best part, to be honest. And I think that's when I talk about these phases where I go very
Mhm.
human and very diluted in my consciousness because I know I'm very active in other realms. Sometimes I have like a lot of recall and sometimes I don't. But yeah, I think the unpacking I was talking about writing my book is like the the um, the understanding of when my process into the program started around the age of 11, 9 to 11, I think, give or take. So yeah,
Mm.
just to validate that little place.
Interesting. So Adam Marquise kind of sort of nailed it there in a little
He
bit of a
did, yeah. Yeah.
oh, way to go.
So I but I sometimes like I do have people that it's really cool because I have people that I know that I work with in those teams, and like sometimes I have a very uh vivid awareness of like what's occurring on those levels, and they're people that I have in my life, and we have this very weird, very in tune psychic connection. And I've seen images of where people are working more on the ground level, where I
Mhm.
tend to be placed more on the ship, sort of overseeing operations. And I have this thing where I can tap and I can direct like a vision or an image or a telepathic thought. Um, and yeah, and so sometimes that gives me a headache.
Yeah. Sorry to make this weird, but it was like literally as you were saying that and touching your head, there was like a like this literal feeling in the side of my as you're doing that. That's a anyway. Sorry to make it weird, but I was like, whoa, damn. Um, very, very interesting. Which is odd because there was a whole follow up comment I had with that when I felt that strange little feeling. It probably got deleted by the AI. They were like, "Yep, take that out." You know, they pulled it out via my implant. No, but I have this weird feeling that the idea behind like the phenomenon of implantation, I think is something that is so common, and it's like a fact of life for a lot of us. It doesn't mean that every human being has some kind of implant for some program or something, but I believe that we come into the physical body when we are born as humans with a series of non-physical kind of what some people call J seals, if you want to get technical, or just kind of pre-installed blockages within the human energy system. So it's almost like, depending on what school of, ascension terminology you want to apply to, everyone has this experience. And I guess if you do want to look at some of the maybe possibly more established or elder statesmen of this kind of strange realm, they've also talked about that at detail. Lisa Renee being, a cumbersome yet positive source of energy, has talked a lot about that as well. I think it's very common, as is the phenomenon of possession, or the what some people call the insertion of a non-physical being into an already existing physical body. I think that is maybe even more common than the need to put technology inside the body. But the weird thing is, and I'll pause after this, but the weird thing is when I first started doing this work like professionally, which was a weird and bizarre process. And at the time, I had a lot of questions about this thing in my ear and other weird experiences that I had had. But kind of what I was shown at that stage was that we were coming to this sort of stage in our collective journey where all of the physicality of it almost didn't matter anymore. And it was like they were showing me, they're like, there's no need to put anything physical in your body. There's no
Yeah.
need to put a mass in you. Part of the reason why your body's reacting is because you have this old tech in your body, and it's not going to kill you, but it's going to create this weird imbalance. And so the majority of it was non-physical. And when I go back to the thing that was kind of in my nose, if you want to call it that, there's been other weird things. Like you mentioned the ear. I also had a weird ear thing, for a while, where I could actually feel something come out. And I remember going like, there's nothing, it's like I felt it like,
Yeah.
dude, what the hell was that? But I think it's very common. I think it's normal, and maybe not normal, but it's a commonplace experience. But not everyone's going to perceive it. You know what I mean? People that are opening up to non-physical energies and going through the awakening journey, they're going to come to a stage where they're like, "Whoa, there's something else going on." But for a lot of other people, it's just like, you're just
Mm.
existing.
Yeah, well,
Anyway.
yeah, I often say before, like the massive awakening that I had, like I would have a lot of these experiences and just kind of dismiss them and just kind of go, oh, I've got a wild imagination, or like that was crazy. But yeah, the possession, I had an experience recently where I was interacting with my dad, and every time I would go and meet with him and take the dogs for a walk, I'd come back and I'd have this intense like anxiety brewing in my stomach. And I made the correlation in the shower, of course. It was like, oh, every time I come into contact with my dad, it's exacerbating this feeling until I clear it. And I was in a session and someone was telling me how they had an attachment, took them 2 days to shake. And instantly I got this image that 3 days ago, my dad and I were walking the dogs, and there was this guy sitting on the path, and he was like sitting there rolling a cigarette, and he had some alcohol. And I was like maybe 10 meters away from him, and I could feel this demonic energy that was inhabiting him, like full possession. And so as I was approaching him, I just kind of like shielded up, just kind of put a force field around me because I was like, but as we walked past, he and my dad had this exchange of conversation, and I was like, oh, it latched. That was where it came from. So I just did a clearing, and then I saw my dad this morning, and that energy had completely gone. So I was like, wow, it's so interesting.
To me,
how,
that's go ahead.
But I have one other story that I want to share. When
go for it. I'm with you.
I think it was in my 20s. Like, I talk about my 20s being like literally my induction into like psychic attack and entity attachments. Like, it was wild.
Oh yeah.
And I remember I had been told that like this spirit had contacted me, and I'd help them trying to transition on, and then they told me that I had to do this thing where I had to write a letter to this guy that I'd been dating and express my feelings, and I wasn't really like open to doing that, and I was like not gonna do it. And the first night I woke up and something had been destroyed in my room, and I was like, oh, F you, like, go away, I'm not gonna do it. Then the second morning I woke up, I had a black eye, and like I'd been punched and beaten up, like brutally beaten. And then like it went during the day. It was like, and then the third morning I woke up and my car had rolled itself and crashed into the fence. And I was like, okay,
while you're asleep, your car rolled down. What? Damn. Okay.
And so I was like, all right, I give up. All right, I'll do it. Like I'm a bit resistant. Like, if I get told to do something, I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. Like,
I'm the same way. I got to learn the hard way. I'll be like, no, it's not, until there's no other choice, and it's like, okay, all right, bye. Yeah.
I'm much more abiding now. Like, but yeah, and so I did it, and I wrote this letter, and I went and delivered it, and it just created this massive blow up. But that person exited my life very quickly, and I can see now, like, I was sort of holding on, and it was like doing this thing that I thought would have one outcome, and it had the direct opposite. Probably was the resistance because I was holding on, but yeah, you kind of learn and wise up when like extreme things happen. Like, I mean, that was kind of like, that was gnarly, but it was so normal as well.
Yeah.
So
they were nudging you hard to get rid of the person.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Because I've had people come in to me and maybe book a session, or they'll come to me and be like, I'm dealing with my guides, and they tell me to do this thing, but then I don't, and they cause all this pain and this sickness, or they make these horrible things happen in my life. And one of the maybe the soft momentary conclusions I will come up with when people tell me that is, I'm like, well, that's probably not your true spirit guides or who's working with you that's doing that, because I have not seen any evidence that says that part of their duty is to cause utter pain and disharmony. But what certain things can happen is, like you're saying, like a weird occurrence where it's like, well, and I woke up like this and my car did that. Or for me, like all of my technology will stop working right when then I'm like, and it's not like there's a disaster, but it's like they'll force you to go, look over there, and you're like, okay, what? And so what do you think that is? Because some people suffer at the hand of that. Is that your guides?
That's a very, very good point. Like, I think a lot of years of discerning of like knowing like the higher consciousness of myself and the guidance, and then not at the hands of other beings, because that can raise havoc in people's lives, of having like an angel or whatever appear to them and tell them to do really destructive things. I mean, we've seen absolute horrific, so it's a lot of discernment when working in the realms. And I think that's why I'm so indignant. Like, someone tells me to do something, like, F you, I ain't doing it. And just, so I think a lot of discernment around like who is actually communicating with you and what they're asking. Ask a lot. I always say ask a lot of questions. If you're being asked to do something, then I would be asking why.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, though, I'm going to switch
Oh,
around.
totally. Please feel free. Go ahead.
I could talk
Otherwise,
to you all day.
I'll just like keep you here asking weird questions over and over again. We will certainly do this again. But anyway.
Oh, we will. What's coming up for you? Do you want to do a little bit of a how?
Oh, right. Oh, you mean in like terms of events and things? Yeah, no, there is actually. That's part of the reason why I'm here today is because one of my duties is to announce and talk about. So I will actually mention that. We are starting actually in October. The private sessions start, and then in November the classes start. And so what we're doing is the third iteration of our what I call the multidimensional, just intuitive training, or honestly, what it really is a multi-month process of psychic or intuitive individuation in which we model a process for connecting with spirit multiple times while also educating ourselves on the nature of the non-physical body, chakras, meridians, organ resonance, also multidimensional tarot. And then we also go through this sort of process of attuning the non-physical body. It's basically repeating and vibrating the non-physical body with a series of frequencies, emotions, kind of all sorts of stuff for a 6-month period. And so this time around, we have 3 levels of it. Some people are joining just the live classes. It's the first time in about a year that I've done the chakra class, the meridian class, the tarot class we just did. So one level is live classes, which start in November and continue through to the end of March. The second level is live classes with the sessions that we do, which is a monthly thing for level 2. So people will be meeting with myself monthly individually and taking classes. And then we have level 3, which is where people meet with myself or my wife and Nora every 2 weeks for 6 months and do these classes and do groups. And it's like this time around it's very highly structured, which could be a good thing. It could be an awkward thing. But I think what it does, and what we have proven actually that it's done with the first 2 groups, is that it gives people an opportunity to kind of go through this training and acclimation process to develop the next character, the next version of you, the next persona, which for a lot of us on the earth plane right now, kind of like you were saying earlier, kind of like also how I had to do. It's like as we go through this awakening journey, we leave behind old identities. We pick up new ones. And as the process of picking up new ones, we begin to develop new traits, new abilities, new elements of ourselves. And one of the ways in which we embrace and activate those things is by healing the non-physical body, healing the inner child, working with our, all sorts of emotional frequencies in the body. So anyway, to make a very long description shorter, we're starting the next process of that in October and November. People can find it through our website, which is rememberyourmission.com.
I love that.
And so you guys can find us at rememberyourmission.com. And then one other thing, real quickly, one last thing. This Saturday, September 17th at 4 p.m. Eastern here, we are having the 2-year anniversary of our Patreon group, the Blue Flame Collective, which what we do in the Patreon group is it's a monthly meeting, although we're going to start the bi-monthly meetings again soon, but it's a monthly meeting where myself and a group of individuals, also my wife and Nora, we'll get together, we'll do readings, we'll do energy clearings, we'll do classes, we do all kinds of stuff. And it has been a thing that somehow has lasted 2 years. A lot of other people have heard me rant about this, so I won't go on much longer, but I never thought it would continue. It was one of those things where I was like, I guess I have to do this thing now. Spirit was like, if you build it, they will come, which sounds cheesy. But it was like, if you do this group, something will happen. And I was like, I'll just do it for a couple months. And then literally here we are 2 years later. And so this Saturday is our 2-year anniversary. And we're doing a free group event for anyone that wants to come in. And what it's essentially is a process, a meditation that I call Gifts of Spirit. And it's also an energy clearing, but what we're doing is we're connecting deeply within the kind of the layers of the physical and non-physical self to kind of connect in with what I call blessings, guidance, messages, gifts. I believe, and what I've observed, maybe you've seen a similar thing, is that there's a tremendous amount of resources, energetic, spiritual, we might even call them extraterrestrial, that are available for us, but not everyone knows that at certain times we may need to ask, we may need to connect. Sometimes in order to give a thing that people are handing to you, you actually have to put your hand out and go, oh, okay, here, let me just take that. We have to receive. And so it's a meditative process where we're going to be connecting with that guidance and just seeing what shows up. Some people get messages, some people get gifts. Some people get spontaneous healing, but we did it in 2020 and it was crazy. I don't know why it's taken 2 years to do it again, but it's coming back this Saturday. And so people can find that on Patreon at the Blue Flame Collective. And the link is already up. So anybody can join us, but that's what we have. So
awesome. Well, I will have to go back and edit this one and put your details in the description box of this video. It is in the first one, as I did that. But I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Who are the blue beings standing behind you, like the translucent blue beings?
Oh, I don't know at the moment, but I'm really glad they're here because there are beings that stand behind me and other people. You're literally the first person on Alive that has ever talked about that. And so I will just, I would ask you, what do you perceive those energies are?
Well, to me, it feels like there's like two or three of them, but they're like translucent blue and they're quite tall. And like one kind of steps in and then like the other one steps out and
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's a literally real thing. As far as I can tell, there's a series of beings or energies that I connect with when I will do sessions. It's like I'll turn to the left and up, and there's literally a dialogue that will take place. It's just a thing. So, whoa, thank you for mentioning that.
I before you jumped on the call, I do a thing where I just sort of tune in and clear the space and clear the room. And I felt these three blue beings walk into my room, and I was like, well, I don't know them. And then as we've got on the call, I've like at certain times I've seen them stand and like, oh, they're connected to you, right? Okay, cool.
Thank you. I'm glad that you have perceived such a thing. I'm not one of those people that does names. I don't claim that these energies are from such and such planet or such and such council or such and such group. I believe that there are a host of beings that work with each of us. And when we step into the stage of our life where that becomes the kind of like the sort of embodiment of who and what you are, and it's a thing that you do, you will find that inevitably people will notice it. They will feel a vibration. They will feel an experience. They will feel a fragment of your energy. And so anyway, thank you for mentioning that. It actually makes me feel really good because I perceive these things coming in and I'm not necessarily a very visual person. I'll have conversations and dialogue with things, but I don't necessarily go, oh, there's those blue beings. I just know it's there. And so anyway.
Yeah, no, they're definitely there. That's cool. I kind of feel like, if you don't mind, or is that invasive?
Please feel free. Oh, no, I love it. Please. Go ahead.
I feel like one of them is like a aspect of you and the other two are connected to that. So it's like one of them I almost like feel is you, but like in non-physical form that resides on a different frequency. Oh, and the other two like stand side by side as almost like assistants. Like they work in a team, but it's like they have different ability, skill set. But I feel that the one that stands in the center point, that is you, and the others, it's almost like I almost feel like they're like apprentices, but they're training alongside, but they have input, almost like like I guess in a 3D term would be like a doctor and nurses.
Yes, literally, exact. Like you're saying the words that are literally in my head, just so you know. So if you're doing that thing where it's like, should I say it? Yes, because that's literally what it is.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
a trick. That
cool.
is a trick.
Well, they're cool. Yeah, I like them. They got nice energy.
Thank you for mentioning that. I do not know the name or the classification of such energies, but what I can tell you is that the more I have cultivated a relationship with those energies and the kind of the positive aspects of what they have brought into my life, the more, it sounds dumb sometimes when I say it, but the more success and just the more just magic and things have shown up. And it doesn't mean that it's always some weird, mystical, amazing experience, because there's also a lot of like emotional things and triggers that I think that we have to deal with when we connect on a more tangible level with non-physical energies. It'll definitely make you look at your shadow. It'll definitely make you hyper aware of the things that you need to heal. But to me, it's really comforting because it's a thing that I acknowledge and interact with every day. And it's just cool to have someone go, hey, I see that thing. And you're like, yeah. So anyway.
I can say on a personal level, like when I go into these really tapped out phases and I feel like my senses aren't as finely tuned as what I'm used to them being, but to still have that, it's still there, but it's not as like heightened, you know,
totally
at present. So I guess it's kind of cool. I like that. Actually, I had this experience. Do you get messages in your dreams? Is that one thing that comes through?
Dreams definitely do happen. They come in and out for me, and I will be real. They come in and out during, times when I'm smoking a lot of weed or not, because I am one of those people where if I'm smoking a lot of weed, I will have crazy dreams, but I won't recall them all. And then when there's times when it's less or non-existent, like crazy things will happen. But I can tell you that recently within the dream space, it's like there's a cyclical meeting or a gathering that a lot of us attend. And I see all kinds of faces, all kinds of people that we know there. It's just constant. What it is, though, I don't know. And I guess to go one step farther into the dream world, other people have heard me say this, but I'm one of those people where I have observed within the dream space, it's like I will wake up in another body and do another life. And kind of like you were saying earlier during this live here, or the other one that got cut off, how you said you'll notice fragments of it throughout your day, like you'll just be doing something and you'll kind of tune in with it. That happens to me constantly, where it's like at some point when the evening comes around, it's like what I perceive, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's like I perceive that I will feel the dreams of the other versions of myself as they're going through the REM process and coming in and out of their dreams. It's like it'll bleed over into our reality. And so anyway,
Yeah,
I think,
sometimes I pick fragments as I wake up, and sometimes it's
yep.
really distorted and quite murky, and I'm like, oh. But I had
Yeah.
one last year that I was in a my lab as a I believe it was a my lab, and I was like instructing someone on like high level biology. I don't even know, like that's not in my
Probably.
realm of, but I was saying it was, and I woke up saying all these words, and I was in a coat. I was in underground facility base, and I was like some sort of tech or lab assistant, and I woke up, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that's an extension of maybe work that you would have been doing within a program or some other thing like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
That makes sense for you. Definitely. I will say one awkward thing. And who knows, maybe I'm wrong, but when I look at the kind of the timeline of Matthew, there's this weird voice that's like, you're not in any program. It's like this adamant thing. So I always hold on to it. I'm like, dude, I'm not in any of those. The last thing you're going to ever catch me doing is going, guys, I woke up and realized I'm in Dark Fleet. Like it has never been a thing for me. But what has been a thing for real, what has been a thing, which is where I think a lot of us are sort of discerning that sort of secret space program version of ourselves, is I think that one of our experiences, hallmark experiences as humans, is that we get to tune into the alternate versions of self. And so I think a lot of us will tune into another version of us. And through our third density human filters, we won't necessarily realize that that's not an event that's taking place in this life. It's an event that's taking place to another version of ourselves. And so people will grab onto the stories and the experiences of people who have had a different version of that, and they filter theirs through that. And suddenly it's like, oh, I realize I got taken as a child into the secret space program. But the reality is, it's not that you did, it's that you're tuning into and connecting with the version of yourself that is literally existing in that reality right now. And so that's why I always like to ask people, because I know that I never had that experience in this human life. But if I sit there, I can find the versions of me that exist within those timelines. And I know I've said this on other shows or lives, but what I've discerned is that those versions of me are not necessarily good people. Well, actually, they're
Yeah,
not.
right.
They're the literal opposite of me. And not that I'm some great, awesome person, but what I've observed is that the versions of me out there are kind of doing the opposite of what I'm doing here. They're
Yeah,
setting
yeah,
up the infrastructure. Over here, I'm like taking it apart. And I don't know, maybe, we all have a distorted lens through which we view our own internal realm, but I wonder.
I like to see myself as a spy, as like an agent.
Yes. Oh, totally.
And I'm like, I can see how that blends into my personality, because I have this detective mode where I
Mhm.
like to feed and find the information and like calculate the data and like I can see that aspect of me for sure. But
Oh,
no, I
totally.
agree with you. I think like I've seen this in a lot of sessions where there is like the oversoul or the essence of the person, like their highest consciousness. And then there's like all these different like energy tether. I call them energy tethers because tentacles make it sound a bit dark. But
That's
energy
all right.
tethers
Yeah,
that
yeah.
comes down into different pockets and realms of people's reality, the different versions of themselves. But I've been shown that as the progression into like a higher frequency, those pockets of reality will dissolve, and the energy essence of that reality will close, and then that will come back into the oversoul, and then back down through the person's energy field, and then that will be, you know, how people go through like a walk-in upgrade. That's the
Yeah.
walk-in upgrade as they integrate that aspect of themselves back into their present reality.
I believe that. I think a lot of us are getting a version of the walk-in experience in this life cycle, which is I think very different for many people. Kind of like a lot of these other things, it's a highly individual process. We know the concept, we know the idea, we know the sort of basis behind the walk-in experience, but you'll find some people in highly placed, social positions, and they're like, everyone here's a walk-in, and we're getting new walk-ins every day. And it's like, it really depends on how you define that.
Yeah.
But anyway, to me,
No,
it makes
yeah, I
sense.
agree. And I've been shown like there is that very distinct. What was the guy's name? Lobsam Rampa was the first I came across as like a walk-in.
I've heard that name, but
Um,
I don't know about this person. But
he wrote a series of books in like the 60s and 70s. So he was a guy from the UK who was like, you know, like a repair guy or a painter or something. And I think he fell off a ladder, and then a monk, a Tibetan monk, walked in. So like
yeah,
that was a full personality shift change where he then started speaking Tibetan and had like all these and wrote all these books about underground tunnels and like, you know, um, so I like that is a legit like soul exchange right there. Like I think, but I think what people talk about now, or what I see, is like the walk-in is more another aspect of themselves or a higher version of themselves or a
yeah.
future I think you've spoken about your experience, like your future self walked
Oh,
into.
definitely. Yeah, that was I didn't even know that was possible. It had to be told to me, and then I was like, "What? Really?" And then it was like, "I know." Like after that, I know it's true. So, yeah, path of
How
discovery.
okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Sorry, I know we're going long,
Oh
but
no, no, it's totally cool. Go for it.
how many people, as an estimate, do you think have had a similar experience um, of like to you of like having that future walk in? Like, I see it as a collision. It's almost like there's like, here's you going along, and then like, I don't know if that's how it felt, but that's the
How many
vision.
people?
Yeah,
Huh.
on the
You
planet.
know what's weird is I I think that everyone can have that experience. Whether they will or they won't is what's left up for that individual's progress or soul or healing or activation. And so, on one hand, we could say everybody could. How many people go through the experience? It's really hard to say, because I think at the same time, there's many different varying levels of that soul of, sort of, whether you want to call it soul unbraiding, soul uncovering, soul activation, walk and journey. There's varying degrees. Some people, like you're talking about this individual and a couple others that I've encountered, they will have a walk-in experience that occurs when the physical body dies. And so that will be one version of that. And then another being comes in and they will live a new life. Others will have it where we will go through this kind of gradated series of integrations of that future self. Now, could we say the number of it? Well, I guess if you wanted to get woo-woo and crazy, we could go back to, maybe not crazy, but we could go back to the 144,000 light workers, which, for anyone out there who's trying to figure out, did they really mean there's only 144,000 light workers? No. That's not what they meant. They're referring in a symbolic way to aspects of self, strands of DNA, and the myriad of experiences and realizations we made. And it was almost like an objective number that was given at that stage. And so maybe there's 144,000. Then again, also, I'm going to twist this even worse. I also believe that many people on the earth plane are not even real. So,
I agree.
it's like,
I
who
agree.
knows? I don't know.
Oh, well, Matthew, like it's just been a pleasure. And I agree. I'd love to do this more regularly because I
Totally.
think we've just got a lot of cool conversations to exchange. And it seems that everyone in the chat's enjoying our weird and wacky observations of the strange realms, as you like to put it. But I will put all the details of where you can get onto doing this Friday, was it?
Yeah. Sunday for you guys, Saturday for us. So yeah.
Okay, cool. And if you want to go into Matthew's training that will be upcoming, highly recommend that. I think that you're an amazing practitioner in the way that you work, and you have a great sense to kind of track and look at energy flows. So connect with.
It's like sort of the only thing I can do on earth at this point. So I'm really, really glad it's working, because at this stage I'm like, whoa, dude, I don't know what else we're going to make happen. But anyway,
have you had any thoughts? Sorry, have you had any thoughts of where that would transition to? Like, do you think?
Oh, where it is going? I actually was awkward. I do. You and I mentioned it earlier. There's a series of books that will need to be written, and then there's depending on how I play that timeline out, I think there's a physical, not like you could call it a property, you could call it a compound. There's a physical location where that will be expanded upon earlier. But it's really based upon me taking direct action at this stage of my life. Otherwise, the story turns out a little bit different. So. not to make it awkward, but yeah, there's a much more of expansion of stuff, and who knows where it's going. I'm more caught up in like the third density stuff right now, like survival and being human, and whether people like me, all the human soul things where like, what am I doing? So
yeah, I get it. Well, thank you for your authenticity and just the way that you express yourself in the world. I really appreciate it. I know a lot of people do. So, yeah, thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the live stream. And
thanks for coming back to part 2. We had
the tech glitches and all that. So we'll have you back again, and just wishing everyone a wonderful September in the weirdness. So, yeah, we'll connect with you soon. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.